So welcome to Actions on Claims. Oops. Welcome to Actions on Claims, Reopenings and Resubmissions. My name is Tom Ryan. I will be your presenter. Today I'm joined by Karen Curtis. She's going to be monitoring that chat. She's going to be doing all those different things. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that. If you have a question, once again, let's use that chat feature right away. Get them put in there. Okay? If you have a question. If you're sitting by someone who says, I can't hear, I still hear music, please let them know that they'll need to exit and re-enter. There's a cookie set that's causing that music to continue to hear. If they're unable to do that, they should dial in and we'll get that information to them that way. All right, let's go through a little bit more about what we're going to do with this. I'll let you know this webinar is in response to the questions you are asking. We started off doing a new to Medicare Actions on Claims series, and it's really designed to help people understand about what a claim is, the different actions you can take, and the different things that happen while you're working with a claim. Could be an appeal, could be a variety of things. So with the questions, we then built the reopenings and resubmissions in order to help respond to those questions. We just had too many questions coming in where we weren't able to do that. One of the things I want to make you aware of that could affect some of the information given during this webinar is that we are changing our portal, which is that secure section of our website. You can submit some clerical error reopenings in there for Part B, and we know that. So the news is that we're changing it, we're updating it. We're hoping to have this ready by the end of spring. Again, that's June, middle of June-ish. So we know it's coming, we just don't have a finalized date. Now, we're not changing the feature. We're not changing the clerical reopening feature, not doing any of that you can do in there. So when we talk about that, keep in mind how it looks, feels, and runs will be the difference. We're trying to make it more stable and enhance the servers and the programming underneath so that you're able to use it better. But that does definitely affect the reopening, the clerical error reopening submitted for Part B on the portal. So that's just a little piece of breaking news coming to you. As always, with any webinar, we have to give you some basic disclaimer information. So let's go ahead and get through this. This education was prepared and is current as of right now. However, Medicare changes. The most current information is available on the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services website, CMS. So check out that website if you're interested. It's www.cms.gov. We have built in many questions and answers and tried to get everything throughout the presentation. Now we will have a live question and answer area. However, I'm going to tell you that there may be times when I ask for you to send some more information or to get me something more, because the only information I have is what you gave me. And sometimes it's pretty vague and sometimes it's not good enough to get you a full answer and to help you out. So I want to make sure I'm doing that. But again, I want you to use the chat to put those in and we'll go through those as we get to that. Last, CMS does prohibit the recording of this presentation for profit-making purposes. So if you are recording, I do have to ask you to stop. We can't ensure what you're using it for. Therefore, what we're doing is to simply say, we'll record it for you. That's why I'm recording it. What we'll do then is post it as an encore. So if you're recording, please stop. That does include screen prints or any other type of recording mechanism. And we will have an encore available. The encore playlist is on our YouTube channel. Karen put that playlist hopefully in the chat for you. You can take a look at that, but that's where we're going to post this ultimately. All right. Today, what are we going to do? Well, first thing we're going to do, we're going to define a reopening versus a resubmission. Now, this came from a lot of the questions that we had is what is a reopening versus a resubmission? Why would I do one or the other? And so some of the really basic information is where we need to start. Then we're going to explain when a reopening occurs. We're going to provide some resources to help you in the future. So it's just some things to look at and items to definitely go on. Our objective is to learn when Medicare uses the reopenings versus the resubmission process. Keep in mind, these are different than the Medicare appeals process. That was a separate webinar, and there was a lot of information given on the 5 levels of appeal. Neither one of these fall into the appeals process. These are both claims features or claims functions. Okay. So what are we going to do first? Again, we're going to start off giving some definitions. It became very clear with the questions that were submitted that some of you are new to Medicare and are just getting started. So you need to start way back at the basics. Otherwise, you're not going to understand what we're talking about throughout. I will let you know that I will stop and take questions and get some answers, but I want you to put those in chat if you have questions. I want to make sure that you're clear and you understand what I'm saying. So The first question that was asked is, what is a reopening on a claim? Well, let's explain it. First of all, it is a remedial action taken to change a binding determination or decision. In other words, there's a minor error, there's a minor omission. It is not a formal appeals reaction. It's not a formal appeals action. It's kind of a middle of the road action. It's not a resubmission. You're not sending in a new claim. You're going to look at the claim that's already in the system and you're going to reopen it. So this works differently sometimes for Part A and Part B, and we're going to get into that a little bit as well. But I do want to remind you, this is not a part of the appeals process. This is for minor errors, simple errors, things that are easy to fix, less complex claims within the system. If there's a lot of edits, we're not going to be able to do this. Okay? So when we look at that, I'm going to provide you with a list in just a little while where we can look at that. Things to keep in mind when we talk about what is a minor error or what is a remedial action. Each Medicare administrative contractor will decide this based on the edits they have built into the system. So if you're listening to WPS education, like what you're listening to today, this may not apply to all other Medicare administrative contractors or MACs. Each one has to look at their edits and decide whether or not this will work as a reopening. So what is a reopening, or when can we do it? So again, we're looking at a claim that's processed and we want to start the processing again for a minor error, not an appeal, not a medical necessity issue, nothing like that. So a reopening occurs 1 year from the processing date. So we have a time frame to do this. The processing date will always be on the remittance advice. Now keep in mind, we say 1 year, and then Medicare does go on to say, hey, allow 4 to 5 days for mailing. So it's really, 370 versus 365. I'm going to recommend that you always use 365 from the date on the remittance advice. I know that if you get a paper remittance, we will allow some mailing time, but it's better to get it in on time. So what do? We have to look at whether or not the claim is complete in the processing system. So it cannot be an unprocessable claim for a 1500 claim form or an 837P electronic transaction. These claims are not complete. This would not be something you can reopen. They could also not be a return to provider claim for a UB04, CMS 1450, also an 837I institutional transaction claim. Any of those types of claims must be fixed in a different manner. And that's where sometimes we come up with a reopening versus a resubmission. And we'll talk about that in just a little while, reopening versus resubmission. So the key thing is, first, a reopening has to occur after a claim processing is complete. There's some final determination made. Now, it also can result in an overpayment or an underpayment. We did have a question about what an underpayment is, so let me explain both of those for you at this time. An overpayment means Medicare issued you too much money, and for some reason, we're going to take a portion or all of the payment back. That's an overpayment. This opens an accounts receivable, and you are required to pay it back by the federal government. An underpayment is when something occurs and we owe you additional funds above what was previously paid. That's an underpayment. And either one can occur from a reopening, an overpayment or an underpayment. One of the other questions said, does it actually have to occur as a payment error or a payment problem? And the answer is no. A reopening can actually be used to change whether or not it's a patient responsibility and a provider responsibility. So really, you forgot to append a modifier and it's the ABN modifier. You can do a reopening just to append that ABN modifier. That's all you're doing on the claim. What is the goal? When you get a new remittance advice, it is simply to change to patient responsibility or a PR from a contractual obligation or a CO. So a reopening, again, that's why it's a remedial action. That's why it's a minor error. These are things that you could have forgotten. We'll get more into that. The next set of questions we had was regarding what is a claims correction. Now, there's a couple of different things you need to be aware of when we talk about a claims correction. Claims corrections do not occur on a CMS 1500 claim form or 837P electronic transaction. There is no way to correct a claim for them. On a UB04 claim or an 837I electronic transaction, these are facility claims, you can actually do a claims correction in direct data entry. This means that you do need the DDE system. If you do not have direct data entry or DDE, then you will go through a different process, which we're going to talk about coming up next. So the claim remains in the system and you go in and actually key over or adjust information and you fix what needs to be done. That is a claim correction, not to be confused with a reopening. Remember, the claim correction can occur before or after processing. Key things to remember. On a claims correction, do you need to do a reopening and a claims correction? No. So again, if we're talking about the UB04 claims or the 837I, if you correct the claim, don't do a clerical error reopening or a reopening at the same time. That doesn't make sense. It's a one or the other situation. Okay? So a lot of people asked us, what is a resubmission? And a resubmission is a claim that was previously sent. However, you are correcting something. You are fixing something. You are changing something. So in terms of a 1500 or 837P, this is how you would actually get us a different claim to consider. So if your claim denied, we can do a resubmission. In other words, you submit a new claim and it's going to override whatever. Key thing to remember with this, it cannot be the exact same information. If it's the exact same information, the claim will hit and be like, this is a duplicate. You didn't change anything and you didn't do anything. Now keep in mind, duplicate occurs in a UB04 and an 837I as well as a 1500 837P. However you do that. When you don't change anything and you resubmit a claim, you're not changing anything in the system. The system reads it and goes, this is a perfect match to this. It's a duplicate. This is very, very similar to this. It's a duplicate. So you have to change something. All right, you're going to correct the claim, and then you're going to get 1 year from the date of service to get this claim filed. Please note, because it's a resubmission, this is considered a new claim. It's not going to follow under the reopening. Okay. This would go the same thing for UB04 claims or 837I claims, that Part A institutional claims, facility claims, or Part B claims that a facility is submitting. If you don't have access to direct data entry, you can do the resubmission, which means something's happening with this claim and I can't go in and fix it. Now I have to resubmit it. But again, what happens is if you did not fix anything and you just sent it again, it's going to either go duplicate or it's going to return to provider again because it looks exactly the same to us. It looks exactly the same to us. So not the same item. Resubmission is submitting a claim that was previously sent with a change to the information on the claim, therefore avoiding the duplicate. Let's move on and let's talk about appeal next. That should be about slide 8, I believe. Oops, sorry, too far. About slide 8 in your presentation. So appeal, this is a formal review when you do not agree with Medicare's claims processing decision. You must be authorized to have appeal rights. This means that Medicare will give you an MA01, a level 1 appeal. Once you move through level 1, you can move to 2, 3, 4, and 5 because there are 5 different levels. This is not the same as a reopening. This is not the same as a resubmission. So keep all of those different kinds of things in mind, not exactly the same. Here's what you got to know about this. When you look at a level 1, this is done through your Medicare administrative contractor, and it's a redetermination of the original determination. When you look at level 2, this is done by a qualified independent contractor, which is a reconsideration of the redetermination of the original determination. Lots of things going on there. Then the Office of Medicare Hearings and Appeals will make a level 3 decision. This is either done by an administrative law judge or an attorney adjudicator. So again, a little different there. It's going to move to the Medicare Appeals Council, should you choose to move that high, and then into federal district court. Each one of those levels has certain criteria that go with it. So I really do recommend that if you're more interested in more on the appeals, take a listen to that webinar, which is already done. I don't want to spend a lot more time on that here. Let's jump on to the next slide, which is questions. What I'm going to do is have Karen gather any questions y'all have. What I'm going to do is give you a few that I don't believe I've addressed yet. And then we'll get on to those questions. So let's, again, start with number 1. What's the difference between a reopening and a resubmission? A resubmission, for lack of a better word, is a new claim with changed information. the claim is entered and treated as though the other claim was not previously there. The key things to remember on a resubmission, okay? One, if it's a Part A claim and you can enter DDE and you're just choosing to resubmit it altogether, cancel the original claim, get it out of there. Sometimes if you can't fix an RTP or return to provider claim, you don't need to cancel it as long as you're making the changes significantly enough to fix whatever the problem is. It won't hit in the same RTP edit, the same return to provider edit. Two, with that resubmission, it has to be different enough from the original claim so that we don't hit that edit. Okay? Now, a reopening is asking Medicare to review a current claim that's in our system and to review it for a specific reason. This is not the same as doing it for medical necessity or a variety of other factors. This is saying, hey, we forgot a modifier, a procedure code's not right. Oops, I billed you with a quantity of 1, so you paid me for a quantity of 1, but I meant to bill you with a quantity of 4, right? So the billed amount's right, I just didn't put the right quantity in. These are types of things that would go under reopening. These are minor errors. It is a process claim. So hopefully that all makes sense. Next question. Are there times when I can appeal a claim or do a reopening? And this absolutely occurs. What you have to do is look at the best action for you and what the claim has going on. So sometimes you'll do a reopening, but sometimes you'll do an appeal, and it really is going to be your business decision and what works for you. Next question. I submit to Part A. Can I use the reopening process? And yes, you can use the reopening process. It's called clerical error reopening. There are forms available on our website to help you through the process in which you can fill out. Many people, however, do find it easier to actually just go into the direct data entry and to correct the claim. Now, you can use the reopening process if the claim is processed, if it's not RTP. Remember, if it's RTP, we have to resubmit a new one. So there's a variety of factors that can go into that. Some people say, look at that tape to tape field to determine that. The only way you're going to do that if you don't have access to DDE is to call customer service. So the next one is specific to Part B, which is the 1500 claim forms and the 837Ps. And they said, do I have to do a reopening on a resubmission on an entire claim? Could I do it specifically on a certain line? And the answer is it's actually best to do it specifically on a certain line when you're looking at the MCS billing. So these actions can occur on a line-by-line basis, and you could do more than one line on a claim, or you can do all lines, or you can only do one. It's really up to you to determine what needs to be done. Let me give you an example of this. So you have a claim that came through and the top line process, everything was good. The second line says that you need a modifier. It was for outpatient rehabilitation services. So PT, OT, or SLP, but you didn't put the disciplinary modifier on there. We don't know what to do with that. We don't know which one of the disciplines it is, and you have to have that. So that would be an action where, yep, the first line's good, don't do anything with it. The second line would be what you'd want to do because you're missing the modifier. So that's all the questions I have. I do have a couple more minutes before I need to go on. So Karen, do we have any questions?
We did get a couple questions, Tom. I think you already answered Tina's, so I'll go on to the next one. If we've billed 3 procedures and need to add a modifier to 1, must I resubmit all 3 procedures? Also, do I need to indicate in any way that the claim is a resubmission?
All right, so on an MCS claim, which again, if I use the term MCS, it's multi-carrier system. This is your 1500 claim forms and your 837P claims transactions. Let's start there. So if you have 3, do you need to resubmit all 3? No, you can submit just the one that needs to be submitted again. The reason for that is in that system, it is a claim by claim basis. Keep in mind, if it's an add-on procedure code, on occasion, the system isn't smart enough to realize that the other claim contained the original one. Okay, so when you go to submit the add-on, you might need to put that on there. There's a variety of factors that do play into that. But in most cases, no, you do not need to do that. Now, there's a difference between how a UB04 and 837I is billed, and some of the difference is the type of service that you're billing, because there are times when you cannot split a claim, and so you would have to resubmit everything all over again, and we'll have to get it back through the system. Now, if it's for outpatient services, now keep in mind when I'm saying outpatient, this is UB04 and 837I institutional transactions. This is not 1500 stuff. we really do have to look at that. If it's for a true outpatient service, we can look at just the one line that was denied because that's an outpatient style service and you don't necessarily have to build through everything together. So it's a little bit different there. I do want to make it clear that, on an inpatient claim where we're doing an inpatient bundle, don't start submitting individual lines. We're not going to be able to do that. So depending on the way the payment system that's involved will depend on that one. So if you need more, let me know. I'm not sure which way you build on that one. Do we have another question, Karen?
We do have one more, Tom. How do you resubmit after a redetermination or an appeal when there's a late charge or you want to change quantity to an allowed amount?
Okay, so not sure which way you're going with this one. And again, I'm going to answer it from both perspectives. On an 830 MCS claim, remember that's our 1500 837Ps. You would go ahead and go into the system. Again, the system is the portal, and you're going to make an adjustment to that. Now, if you said I did an appeal and I did a redetermination, guess what is going to happen? They're going to come back and say, hey, you can do this. You still have to try to do that. Okay. So we're going to wind up in a variety of different situations to have that happen in this case. And I'm not really sure exactly the best answer because I'm not really sure what you're doing with this one. I'm not sure if the, if the appeal's already gone through. I'm not really sure, but you do have a time frame to do that, and that's 1 year. So if the appeal says nope, just go in and do a resubmission. In other words, submit a new claim. Go ahead and do that. You can do that in this manner. If it does go to duplicate, then you're doing a different type of denial appeal. So for a 1500, it's a little different. Again, for UB04 or E37I, again, this is FIS system, Physical Intermediary Standard or Shared System. You can go in and adjust those claims right in the system. So once you do all of those different things, you have to pay special attention to what's going on with it. And again, we have to, especially with the FIS system, we have to look, the Physical Intermediary System, this is your UB04s, this is your A37Is, you have to check the tape-to-tape field. If you don't, and you try to rebill it, it's going to not work because that claim is going to hit up against it. You have to then void and rebill. You have to do it. So again, it's a variety of different things that happen, but it's dependent upon the different fields. Hopefully that all makes sense, and it depends on how you bill. Karen, do we have any further questions?
No, that's it at this time, Tom.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Again, if you have a question, let's throw those back into that chat. Hopefully I pretty much got everything, and you're okay to move on with that. Let's do a little bit of an explanation. And so what I want to focus on with this is how and when to complete the actions. What does Medicare consider? Hey, this is a reopening. This is a, this is what I would like to see us do as a, actual submission article or a resubmission, that type of thing. I mean, some of this is going to go back and forth depending on claim type because they do function differently. And I think I've made that pretty clear in how you can access the systems. So let's talk about this explanation. For no other purpose other than I chose to put the MCS claims first, and an MCS is the multi-carrier system. Again, this is your 1500 claim form and your 837P electronic transaction. So again, these are sent to the system. It doesn't allow a provider to correct a claim. In other words, the provider can't access the system and fix your claim. You have to wait until the claim processes before you take an action. So even if the claim denies, even if you see that something is wrong, there's nothing you can do until that claim processes. Now, it could go unprocessable, in which case you're going to submit a new one, or it could be something where it processes, but it's denied, in which case you can do a variety of different factors. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I'm going to give you some information coming from CMS on what a clerical error reopening is, but then I want you to pay attention to what's on these slides. Because what's on the slide right here is things that we've identified that meet these criteria. So CMS says that a clerical error reopening includes mathematical or compilation mistakes, transposed procedure or diagnostic codes, inaccurate data entry, misapplication of a fee schedule, a computer error, or duplicate claims due to a clerical error or omission. Missing modifier would be an example that the provider believes would incorrectly be identified as duplicate. Incorrect dates of service, incorrect provider numbers, incorrect use of modifiers all fall into that category. So then WPS, again, as the contractor, we have to take a look and say, okay, this is our broad definition as given by CMS. So we have to look at this and say, okay, here's the deal. Oh, I'm going to add a modifier. Got it. I did not change the data service. I did not change the beneficiary, and I did not change the provider. Those are not reopenings. Those are not clerical error reopenings. Any of those are new claim submission with the money sent back to Medicare. Now, keep in mind, I'm still talking about a 1,500. You're changing the units without changing the dollar amount billed. So again, you build one unit, but it should have been 3, and the dollar amount was calculated at 3. You're just changing the unit. You're adjusting the procedure code. In some cases, this can cause a clerical error reopening. In other cases, the reopening will reject. Let the system tell you if it's going to reject. How do we do that? Use the portal. Okay, use the portal. Place of service. Example, place of service should have been an office when it was billed as an outpatient hospital. That's an 11 versus a 21. So we want to make sure we're getting those correct places of service. That's important to notice. Also, there are times when a diagnosis code causes this, and so we want to make sure we're doing all of those different features. One of the questions that we got, and this is an interesting thing that this person has asked multiple times, was how do I request a clerical error reopening, and why can't I find it in the appeals section of your website? Let me jump this just to the appeals area for a moment, and this is going to work for both of y'all, Part A and Part B. I'm sorry. So my website, right here, I'm in the Part B area. When you're looking for clerical error reopening information, it doesn't matter if the information about when you can do it or any of that, or if it's information about like a form, you need to go to the claims area. As I said, this is not a part. This is not a part of appeals, nor is a resubmission. So it doesn't matter if you're in Part A or B, the claims area is where you want to head to. Now, I personally like the A to Z sort field. You can use whichever one you want, but you could also type clerical error in the filter and it will bring it up. And then you can kind of come through and you'll see a variety of different articles. So I do think it's important to note that. Here's how to request a clerical error reopening. This is the full title. If I select this link just to show you what happens, it's going to automatically open this guide and it'll bring me into J5A or B. Okay, so right there, it's going to give all the different information. It will also be under the H's. So it's how to correct a claim, all of these, how to request a clerical error. This is what we're talking about right here. Okay. I do want to remind you that if you're interested in doing a form, we do offer, if you're not interested in doing it in the portal, which for Part B, again, we're still in the 1500, you can do this in the portal. If you're not interested in that and you want an actual paper claim form where you can download it and attach it, open up the forms, but make sure you're in claims, and then you have to find the correct form. Okay, and that's Iowa Appeals, Clerical, error reopening, fax cover sheets, all of those different kinds of things depending on what you're doing. Hopefully that kind of helps you get what you needed. Again, if we flip this to Part A, it will do the exact same thing, except it's just going to be the Part A stuff. So it's the exact same areas, guides and resources, and then you'll go to forums. So make sure that you're aware of where those are at. One of the articles, the article listed on the Part B section of the website, the question is particular to this, is this an all-inclusive list? And the answer is no, it's not an all-inclusive list. We do recommend that if you really want to know, and the easiest way to do that, to find out if you can do a Part B clerical error reopening, use the clerical error reopening feature in the portal, which is up here. I cannot log in, but I am going to recommend you hit this portal user manual. You can look through all the different features, and it's going to take me just a second because I got to scroll down quite a bit here. And we got to get down to the claims area, and there's the clerical error reopenings. When I click on that, it'll tell you this allows Part B providers. Part B providers are MCS billers, 1500 and 837P, not Part B services, not outpatient services in a hospital, not outpatient services in any type of facility. Part B means MCS, and that's what's explained right here. It goes through some different information that may help you. Why is it different? And that was a question that we got. Why do a clerical error reopening within the portal because I bill on a UB04? This was the question. The answer is because you also have the ability to access direct data entry. Okay, so because of that, we don't offer it through this mechanism. Not that you couldn't do it, you just have to do it in writing. All right, so that's the 1500. That's pretty much everything I have on that one. Let's move on to the UB04. Again, I've talked a little bit about this, but I want to make sure it's very clear. If I say UB04, I'm really talking about FIS, Physical Intermediary Standard or Shared System claims. These are your UB04, 837I. I'll use a variety of different terms, but what I'm really talking about are those facility claims. They do have a limited use of reopening, and this is for medical records. Now, this is related to a question that we got. Why do they have a limited use of reopenings? Well, most actions require a correction, a claims correction. So depending on what's going on, especially if you get an RTP, this is a claims correction. But then we have to look at whether or not you have to void the claim first. And sometimes you'll have to do that. And again, that's that tape to tape field that I keep talking about. If you're not familiar with that, what you're going to do is go out and look at the DDE resources and the guide to find out where that field is. And I'm going to show that to you in just a few moments. If you don't have access to DDE, you've got to call customer service and ask. You have to do it. No other way around it. So in most cases, you're not going to use the clerical error reopening feature. Now, of course, we say in most cases. One of the questions that came in, which is what built this slide in particular, was they're sending in medical records and Medicare is saying we're doing a reopening. What does that mean? Because they're sending those medical records into appeals. So what happens is you send those medical records in because we're missing medical records. We don't have anything. So we want that to go back and have an original determination done. This has nothing to do with you. It's a remand. It's a different department. It actually goes back to the original department. In this case, it would be medical review. Medical review then has to review the records. They can uphold or they can change. So they can change it to say, yes, we have records, which we now do. We could process the claim, which would be a new remittance advice notice code. We could say, hey, not enough records. You're missing a key piece here. But again, we still have medical records. Therefore, it's a difference. What'll happen is it's going to give you a new remittance advice code. And with that code means you'll begin the appeals process. That's also what sometimes happens when you submit a new claim and you do a resubmission. Part of the goal of that is to not get the code that we already had and to give us a new code. So that way, if you disagree with it, hopefully you're going to get the appeal rights and you can move on. Why do I say hopefully? Well, I can't ever guarantee it's going to be a paid service, right? I can't guarantee it's going to be medically necessary. That's all based in the information that you had. So I want to make sure we do that. Before, well, I'll move on to the next slide and then I'll jump. The next slide is questions. Of course, the first question is, I've talked a lot about direct data entry and there was a variety of questions submitted on what that is and where do you find information on that and things like that. So let's jump into that before I get into anything else. So we've got to make sure we're in the MAC J5 Part A section right here. If we're not in this section, you will not find the information you need. Now, right now, I'm going to go back and just head into this. Now, if you say I'm in J8, yep, you can go to the J8 section, not a problem. No area there to concern. Let's go ahead and start with claims just so that you can kind of find what you're looking for. Inside claims, remember, we're not talking about appeals here. The direct data entry is a claims feature. Therefore, you got to be in claims. Start off doing your sort fields. Again, I'm in J8, you could be in J5. Remember, Part A does not equate to the type of service. Part A equates to a system. So this is FIS system. I like the A to Z sort. You sort by however you want. Then I've got my manual, I've got my overview, and I've got my systems information. So this will help me get through any of those types of pieces of information. If I open the manual, I can look at the downloadable manual. And if I want to know what the tape to tape field is that Tom keeps talking about, that, hey, if I have something in the tape to tape field, guess what you got to do? Just go ahead and type tape. It's going to go ahead and find your results to you. And it says, okay, online submission. This is what you're looking for. So a couple of you asked questions on why doesn't this go through and why doesn't this work and why is this duplicating? Why do I have to void? This is what we're looking for, the tape to tape field. Okay. So if I want to go further down, I can actually find out where that field is located. And it'll tell us, okay, I'm in the document control number structure. Here's where the fields are. It will get you eventually down to walk through where everything is, what the values are, and what all of this means. So again, you're going to have to do a little research to make sure you know how to use that tape to tape field in DDE. But if you don't have DDE, the only way to find out if it went is, and what that means is to call customer service, because you got to have those values. Otherwise, it doesn't really mean anything and it's not going to help you. Let's go on just a little bit more, but you can see there's a lot of information out there, and I don't want to like stop everyone from going on. So that's one portion that is very key there. Let's go ahead and close out of that one. And just jump back for a second here. So again, you can see I resubmit. Again, I like my A to Z's. Let's go back down. Again, if I want to do just general overview, if I want to do some system information, I can find out any of that. If you need to access DDE, you do have to have electronic access requested. You also want to check out forms right here at the top, and you want to scroll down and you want to make sure you're doing this enrollment and this access request. Okay, so there's a variety of different other forms that you'll need. One of those is also an electronic data interchange request. That's over here. So it just depends on what you need to do. But if you read those overview and other pieces of information, it should get you what you need. All right. The next question that we had for this section was, what recommendations do you have for determining which action we should use? Let me make this as clear as possible. Really, my recommendations are just that. It's up to you to decide what best fits your business practice and what's going on. One, look at the time it takes to process an appeal. Do you want to do the appeal when a reopening would work? Because a reopening takes a lot less time, so you're going to wait longer. I can't answer that question for you, but look at those time frames. What's going to get you your fastest results? What's going to get you what you need done? Is it to do a void and resubmission? I don't know that answer, so I don't know what's going on within. So that's another question to ask. Are you trying to adjust a remittance advice code with a new reason code? In that case, look at, is it an appeal? Are you doing a medical necessity appeal? Because that's always going to be an appeal. Are you doing a remittance advice because they didn't get the medical records or you didn't submit those timely? That's going to be a problem, man. I mean, not going to lie to you, you're going to spend a lot of time getting those to us and us getting them to the right department just to have that department look at it again. Just submit them timely. Really work hard to make sure that doesn't happen. Is this a missing modifier situation without a financial amount impact, or even with it sometimes? Let me give you an example. You have the advanced beneficiary notice. You told the patient it's not medically necessary, but for this outpatient service, you did not put the GA on there saying, I've got it, it's all good. And so when the claim came back, it came back as a provider responsibility because you didn't put that on there. And that being a modifier, GA. So you want to make sure you're doing all those different things. Again, I really need you to look at your best business practice, what's best for your facility, who does which portions within your provider's office, because that's going to affect your workloads and that's going to make this best decision for you. One of the questions that they asked us is, can we use a reopening to avoid paying Medicare back? And the answer is, I need more information. What's the recoupment for? What are you trying to avoid? One of the common ones we get with this, I think I answered this a little bit earlier, but just in case I didn't, if I have a wrong date of service, a wrong patient, or a wrong provider, can I just reopen it, fix it? And the answer is no, that doesn't work that way. Those claims have to be removed from the system. And the only way to remove them from the system is to pay them back fully and then do that. Or to void them. Now, if you're a Part A, you can go in and void in DDE. That's a different structure, right? And then you're going to rebill it. You need to start over. So I want to make sure we're doing that correctly. The next question, I'm going to give you the best answer I have. If you have more, I'd like you to put some more information in the chat for me. But how do I properly bill denied claims to Medicare? This is a very general question because I don't know why it's denied. There's a lot going on with questions here. So if you really want to think about this, when you say denied claim, can you help me understand what you mean? First, are you talking about a medical necessity denial? Are you talking about a technical denial? A technical denial for Medicare means that's just not a payable service. Could be medically necessary, could not be medically necessary. Means the Social Security Act said it's not payable, period. Those are denied correctly and there's nothing we can do to help you. So it really depends on the type of denial that you had. And I don't really have a good answer because I don't really have a lot going on with that question. Next question is something I do want to take you back to the CMS website for before I get too far into some of these resources. And one of the questions that we had is regarding a reopening, and they're looking for where to find a list of things that can never be reopened. And this is your technical denial stuff. You can't reopen it. So if we go to the CMS website, what we're going to do is we're going to look for that list of items that's never covered by Medicare, no matter what you do. So Medicare first, okay? Then we're going to go to regulations and guidance. Don't go to coverage. I want you to go to regulations and guidance. Once regulations and guidance opens, then you're going to go to the word manuals. Okay. Now, these are the internet-only manuals. That's what we're looking for. So you see the left side, you're going to see the internet-only manuals. Inside the internet-only manuals, you've got a big old bunch of manuals. Okay, it shows 9 of them. It's not all of them. But the key one that we want to look at for this piece of information is this Medicare Benefit Policy Manual. Okay. It's 100-02 Medicare Benefit Policy Manual. So go ahead and open that up. Inside here, there's a lot of chapters that explain, hey, if this is medically necessary, then this is covered, and a lot of things like that. However, when I get down towards the bottom, okay, coverage of extended services, oops, I'm not far enough yet, I apologize. There we go. Chapter 16, general exclusions from coverage. You can rebuild these as many times as you want. You can file an appeal. You can do a clerical error reopening. Anything listed in here is not going to be payable. Not going to be payable. These are based in coverage exclusions under the Social Security Act or other laws and regulations that make Medicare not be able to pay it. So this is not something you can file an appeal with. You cannot file a reopening with. And by the way, you can't do a clerical error reopening unless you wanted to put the GY modifier or a GA modifier, or, I'm sorry, GY or GX, letting us know that you gave an ABN or didn't. By the way, it shouldn't affect patient liability, but you can do it. So that was one of the primary questions that we got underneath there. At this point, I'm going to stop again and see if we have any questions that came into the chat.
You've answered all the questions that have come in, Tom.
All right. Well, hopefully, if you all have some more questions, I'd really love to hear those, and I'd love for you guys to put those in chat. I did do some of the resources as we went through. I felt like some of these resources are better tied in, but the reason that I did give you the slides that I gave you is just to help you understand where I was going and how to navigate to different items. So the first one, the first resource that we actually had, oops, I went the wrong way. The first resource that we actually have is those direct data entry manuals. Again, I want to make this as clear as possible. This is only for people submitting that the physical intermediary standard or shared system FIS. We had quite a few providers and participants ask us, why don't I have access to this? I don't know. When MCS, or the multi-carrier system, the Part B system was built, wasn't built the same way. Therefore, it's only for one and not the other. But I would recommend taking a look at all of this different pieces of information. One caution that we were asked to give you is that you do need to have a unique login and password. This is a personal account. It's not something that you should be sharing accounts with. So take a look at the overview. I already showed you where to find that, but if you have any questions there you don't know and you don't want to remember, just select it again. I'm just going to open the link up by clicking it, or let it run for a second there, and it'll just bring you right back into the overview. It's going to get you through all the different pieces of information you need. I do think there's a lot of great information here, and definitely a definite opportunity for you. All right, on your next slide, it's going to say WPS portal. And again, this is something that is available. It is this secure login right here, and it's available anywhere you're at in our portal, from the very first screen, the landing page, all the way through, no matter where you move. Until you log in, then this login will go away and you'll actually be able to access the portal and the information. I can't go into the portal. There's too much PHI, protected health information, and PII, personally identifiable information. They don't give us access to this. What they do ask us to do is to let you know that if you want to register, you're able to do that here. You can't log in for any reason, you can reset your password, do all of those different types of things available here. And then the main guide is this big portal user manual. I want to show you a couple of things about this. So I did just select portal user manual. The manual is broken into a variety of sections. If you want to start and you're not familiar with this, I do recommend taking a look at the portal overview. If you just want to download the entire manual, maybe you want to work from a PDF, maybe it's easier for you, go ahead and use the download button. This will open up the entire manual for you. Otherwise, you can read through what you need, select a section, and it'll take you directly to that section. Again, here's your clerical error reopening, your Part B claim submission through the portal. Now again, Part B is MCS claims, not FIS claims. Even though it's an outpatient service done by a hospital, that's still a FIS claim. Only MCS can do this. So you want to make sure you're aware of that type of information you have going on there. Again, there is a section for appeals. We're not going to focus on that too much. I just do want to mention it because a lot of people have asked us questions about that. So it is here for you if you wanted to know. So that hopefully answers the questions without me having to go through all of that basic information. Want to remind you that all of your forms are located in the claims section. So that's topic center, claims. Once this opens, then you're going to go to forms right here. Okay. Somebody asked if they could use the tools. This is literally a question. Can I use tools? All tools. You can definitely do that. And then you can go all forms. And then you'll see a list of all the different forms that you can open up. I personally am not a big fan of the list. It finds me a little bit overwhelming, but do whatever way you want. What works best for you, you do that. That's what you need to do. So again, a couple of different options there. All right. We went through that. We went through the claims page. We're back to some questions, and I do have some more pre-submitted questions I'd like to go through, and then we'll open it back up. So if you do have a question, please put those back into that chat feature. First pre-submitted question. Is there a guide that says when to do a reopening versus when to do a redetermination? And again, a reopening minor error redetermination is the first level of appeal, and you're going to have to look for the MA01. And the answer is no, there's no guide. Because these actions can occur at the same time for the same denial, or because these actions can occur for the same denial reason in some cases, there's not a set guide. It's really a business practice. So when you look at it and you say, this is what's best for my business because of time frame, because of how we function, that's up to you. On the other hand, if you go back and you say, man, I could do a redetermination on this, but it's past the first 120 days from the remittance advice, but I'm still within 365 days, then you will default to a reopening because you only get 120 days to file that redetermination. So there are things that you need to keep definitely into account when you're looking at that. The next one that was asked of me is, can timely filing claims be appealed online or be reopened online? And the answer is no. While a timely filing claim is a reopening style claim, it has to be put into writing to the manager of our claims department. They then have to do a manual review to make sure that the waiver that you're requesting has the information needed that CMS requires. And there are very specific information. We do have an encore about timely filing and about things you'll need to know. If the manager decides that you do meet the requirements, then what's going to happen is they're going to do an internal reopening. Again, you don't have to do anything. You're going to them. As long as you submitted the pink or red or whatever you want to call them, the paper claim form, the UB04 or the 1500, they're going to do that. What are they looking for? They're going to look for the fact that you didn't know, the fact that there was retroactive eligibility, there was a system problem that caused this to deny for that. So there's a variety of different things. But remember, when you say this is a reopening, it cannot be done electronically and it has to be in writing to the claims manager. There's an article on our website also to help you out with that if you're looking for more information. Next question. I'm looking at the Part B information and using that to file a reopening, but the reopening isn't available in the portal. Now, this is where it led me to have a question for you. When you say Part B information, are you a Part B biller, billing the multi-carrier, or are you a Part B biller, billing the fiscal intermediary standard or shared system, FIS? How is your service being billed? Because remember, services for Part B can also be done outpatient facility, in which case we would not offer that in the portal. So I don't have a good answer for you there. I would really need a little bit more information. If you're on and you have that information and you want to help me out, I'm definitely willing to take that. Why is a reopening information on the claims page versus the appeals page like it used to be? Well, because this is a claims action, it's not part of the appeals process. So we were trying to make it clear to people that, yes, this is a claims action. It is not part of the appeals process. Remember, the appeals is the 5 levels, has very set time frames. You miss a time frame, you're out. The reopening process is a little bit different, and that's why it's not located on the appeals. It's actually on the claims because it's considered a claims action. Next question, if you recoup the claim on a charge, how do we resubmit the corrected charge if we make a correction? And this would be submitted as a new claim. Remember, when we take money back and that is closed out, that claim is then invalid in the system. It's kind of like voiding a claim for the Part A world. The system says, hey, this claim, yep, we don't have anything for this. And so then you just resubmit. You just want to send a new claim. Now, keep in mind, there are times, especially like data service, maybe provider number, maybe patient information, whatever the situation is, when you will have to void, send the money back. Now, if you don't void, if you just say, hey, I got to take this money back, you still have to be in a Part B person, right? You want to make sure that money comes back. You have to submit a brand new claim to get that information corrected. Next question is, can an electronic corrected claim be sent when a payment has been received? And the answer is absolutely. Use DDE if you have that available to you. You could also use the clerical error reopening in the portal for Part B claims. Part A, DDE, Part B, clerical error, just depending on which one you're using there. There are also times when you can send in a new claim. There's also going to be a variety of other actions. So we don't really have a lot of information to give on that because I don't really know exactly what you're trying to do with that corrected claim. So with that, Karen, do we have any other submitted questions?
Yes, Tom, we did have another question come in. I have used the reopening to correct the provider in the past. Did you say that we are not to do that and that we would have to have the claim removed, and if we are paid, to do the overpayment request and then submit the claim with the correct provider?
All
So
right,
it
so in
sounds
this
like it was
case,
billed with the incorrect provider number and they need to bill it with the correct provider.
you can use the reopening for that feature. I mean, you can use it. What I was trying to say is, it's not, if you don't want to use the reopening, what you'll have to do is refund, resubmit. Those are your two options in this case. There are also times when, depending on the provider number, it actually, depending on the reassignments and a variety of other factors, it doesn't affect things. Like, it doesn't even affect the payment, like where the payment went, because that provider reassigned. So that's when you can use a reopening. I don't know the situation. I don't know if you're coming from a Part A facility. So I don't want to say you can never do a reopening to correct the provider. That's not the case. But there are times when it doesn't work. And so you want to make sure you then make sure that that information is done as a resubmission. And then again, no, a resubmission will work, but you want to make sure you refund the money. So depending on the situation, what the provider correction is, all of that, those are your options. A reopening will work for some. If it doesn't work for that one, that's why I kind of said it that way. If it doesn't work for that one, then you're going to have to do the refund resubmission. Hopefully that kind of clears it up, because it's not an all or nothing type situation. And Karen, do we have any other questions?
We do. If you recoup a claim and we determine the claim is correct, what is the TFL to send a redetermination? The recoup date or the original process date?
Very good question. Very good question. It's the recoupment date. The date on the recoupment letter asking you to return the money in which you're getting all of that. If you use the original process date, I mean, I'm going to tell you straight out, we're probably going to deny it because it's probably going to be over 120 days old, right? And we have to go off of what you request. So you want to say, I'm appealing the recoupment. Here's the date from that letter. Not, I'm appealing the original determination. That's not what you're appealing at all. So hopefully that kind of helps you a little bit to answer that. Next question, please.
We may need to get some clarification on this, but Mary said, how do you get the complete manual download again within WPS? My site is not showing the green download button. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Couple of things happen. One, there are computer programs, or not computer programs, there are systems that do not allow download. You can't do it. In that case, you would not be able to go to the portal user manual, and you would not have a download button right here. It's just going to eliminate it. There is no way to then download the full item. Now, this is a computer system. This is a block your company has on to stop you from downloading. It's not something we have any control over, which is why we offer it in that manner. But keep in mind, we do offer all the different sections. You just might have to work a little bit more to get it. Same thing will happen if we go to the claims center here. And I'm going to go to A to Z because that's just what I like. You guys will hear me say that a lot. That's what I like. Direct data entry manual. If you don't have this download button and you do need the direct data entry manual, you'll have to contact customer service and they'll have to help you through the process. Again, the system limitations set by your system is what does it. So I apologize if you don't have that button. All right. Sorry, next question, Karen.
Okay, from Holly, it says for Part B, if we are past the 120 days to appeal denial, but within the 1 year time frame, do you suggest us to rebill? And then she also added, do you suggest to rebill to get a new denial to follow up on?
So for Part B, and I want to make this clear, if it's going to be a rebill and it's going to look exactly like what we denied before, it's going to go as a duplicate denial. If you're not changing anything, it's not going to help you. So you may be out the appeal rights. If you are changing something for whatever reason, then absolutely you could rebill, or you could do a clerical error reopening or a rebill, depending on what you choose to do there. And then depending on what the denial comes back on, that will determine whether or not you have more appeal rights. With that said, that's all the time that I have right now. So I'm going to go ahead and finish out here, and then we will move on. All right. So thank you for listening today. We really would like to encourage you to take that survey, provide any feedback that you have. Remember, we really want to know the ways we can improve. So if you're giving me a different score, please just give me some comments, help me out there. Also include any other topics. Doesn't have to be related to actions on claims, doesn't have to be related to appeals or reopenings or redeterminations or anything, just any topic you want. I would also encourage you to continue to look for more on the Actions on Claims series, but also the general education that we're giving. We're giving a lot of education out there, so take a look at the live events page and register for any of that. Don't forget to check out the Encore playlist. And then if you have a question based on those, you do need to send those in, again, in writing. But you need to give us the Encore title so that we know that you listened to it and we have some base information. So on behalf of myself and Karen, Provider Option Education, thanks for participating. We look forward to your survey comments and we hope that you have a great day. You may now disconnect.